The Gifts of Winter banner is our second Christmas themed banner, and it follows the traditions set by the first one last year. Armor units, check. Powerful armor only skills, check. A dash of power creep, check. To be fair, I was expecting things to be a lot worse in terms of overpowered units and skills, but for the most part, Intelligent Systems showed some restraint. We do have a few new unit types to discuss. Surprisingly, we only have 3 units on the actual banner: Winter Fae, Winter Ephraim, and Winter Eirika. While I love the Renee twins, me and my wallet would love to see some other Sacred Stones units. With Book 3 diving into the realm of the dead, I would love to see a Grand Hero battle with Orson. Enough distractions, we'll be taking a look at the stats of these new units as well as any new weapons and skills they introduce. I'll also talk about a few build ideas along the way. Winter Fae is first and foremost just adorable, and her dragon form actually keeps her reindeer antlers, which is a nice touch. Don't let her cuteness fool you, however, because Fae joins us as an armored green dragon. Boasting an impressive 180 base stat total, Fae is extremely strong just through sheer numbers. She has 45 HP, 35 attack, 26 speed, 33 defense, and a ridiculous 41 base resistance. The only other unit in the game who can even reach 41 res with just stats is a plus res nature flora, so yeah, Fae is a monster when it comes to tanking magical damage. Like other armored dragons, Fae is just a ball of stats and she'll be very tough to take down. As a green armored dragon, Fae will suffer the same fate as male Grima. Both get extra screwed by Falchion and Armor Slayers because not only do they take extra damage from being a dragon or armor effectiveness, they also have the weapon triangle disadvantage. Since Fae's defense stat isn't as crazy as her res stat, this might be the best way to take her down. In terms of skills, I always like to start with old ones first. Fae comes with Luna, which is perfectly fine, although I imagine many people would just give her Iceberg instead for a guaranteed plus 20 damage. Instead of finding a new crazy Vengeful Fighter 4, we are stuck with the good old Vengeful Fighter 3. Introduced on last year's Winter banner, this skill has stayed incredibly strong, and Fae will love the guaranteed follow-ups plus cooldown reduction. She guarantees to charge a 3-turn special like Iceberg, or even a 4-turn special if she were to get hit twice. As we will discuss shortly, Fae is completely okay with taking multiple attacks. Her C skill is Armor March, which helps armor units move 2 spaces, and it's a nice mobility skill for the class. It will help her move into position to activate her 2 new skills. The first one is Fae's weapon, which is Glittering Breath Plus, a 14 might dragon breath that is inheritable. Its effect reads: during combat, boost units defense and res by the number of allies within 2 spaces times 2. This has a maximum limit of +6, which would be 3 nearby allies in total. It also has the usual adaptive damage effect against ranged units. So this is a pretty crazy weapon. We've had similar effects from some of this year's bridal weapons, which granted attack and speed instead of defense and res. Glittering Breath has a very close comparison to Water Breath, which is another inheritable dragon breath. Water Breath grants +4 defense and res when attacked. It has no ally requirements at all, but only works on the enemy phase and has a lower stat boost. Glittering Breath has higher potential, but of course you must be with the team to fully benefit from its effects. Being able to work on the player phase is another plus, although Fae will probably want Bold Fighter to get 2 guaranteed attacks. Now, assuming Glittering Breath is refinable, you could give it the defense or res upgrade to get an extra flat +4 of either stat. So with 3 allies nearby, you could get an extra +10 defense or res just from this dragon breath alone. +6 defense and res is already pretty sweet, but that's not good enough for little Fae. She introduces what I think is the last bond skill combination with defense and res bond 3. Like any other bond skill, the user must be next to an enemy ally and they get a +5 stat boost, in this case to both defense and resistance. Thanks to the power of in-combat buffs, defense and res bond stacks with Glittering Breath, and you have yourself a very tanky dragon. Not even considering a refined Glittering Breath, you can have Fae reach a potential 52 resistance and 44 defense. While it may not grant special cooldown or any other special abilities, you have to admire the power of pure numbers. While defense and res bond is a great skill, it may be a little underhyped thanks to Fortress defense and res. That skill grants +6 to defense and res at all times in exchange for 2 less attack. You can definitely make the argument that this is better than having to worry about ally positioning, but maybe 2 attack matters to you. Both are good skills and Fae would love either of them herself. With no crazy unique mechanic from her weapon, Winter Fae is pretty easy to build. Keeping most of her base kit, we can simply stack on more stats. Assuming you can upgrade Glittering Breath, I would give it the extra defense refine. Fae really doesn't need more res, although I'm not stopping you if that's what you want. Swap is a pretty standard for armor units, although the choice is up to you, and like I mentioned, you can use Iceberg instead of Luna if you want consistency. By adding attack and defense bond as a sacred seal, we boost Fae's defense stat even higher, and combined with Glittering Breath's potential +6 defense and res, plus defense and res bond, we can easily push Fae above 50 plus for both stats. It's very easy to set up for enemy Fae's baiting, and Fae has Vengeful Fighter ready to return 2 counterattacks. With this many stat points, I would say Fae is almost unkillable for most blue units. Now, since Fae has a super high res stat, it makes a lot of sense to add distant counter abilities to the mix. I assume most of you will have Lightning Breath fodder over distant counter fodder, but the two can be interchanged. Add Aether and distant defense and you have a pretty standard magic tanky dragon build. Now the plus side of using Lightning Breath instead of distant counter means you can use things like Steady Stance 4 for extra annoyance if you want. The main issue with this build is the lack of player phase power. Luckily for ARM units, they have the OP Bold Fighter B skill to solve all their problems. Combined with Quick Riposte, you have follow-ups for both phases. This build sacrifices a crazy enemy phase for having offensive pressure, which can cause issues if enemies aren't prepared. Glittering Breath can work on the player phase too, and if you want to keep high defense and res at all times, you can go with the newish Fortress Defense and Res 3 skill. If you want to keep some enemy phase power, then Steady, Warding, or even Fierce Breath are of course top tier choices as well. With all of these crazy new skills, I haven't even mentioned Ploy skills. Winter Fae has the highest res stat in the game, so therefore is the best Ploy user you can get. Slap a Ploy C skill if you already have enough Armor March users on your armored teams. For the most part, Fae will be a giant green tank. Glittering Breath and Defense and Res Bond give her a ton of survivability, at least in the hands of the player. Milgrima is still the king of high attack and can potentially one-shot units where Fae will probably need multiple hits. Overall, I think Winter Fae is strong, but probably not as annoying as someone like Surtur. Our next winter unit is Ephraim, who is back with his trusty lance, but is remaining an armor unit. Ephraim has 45 HP, 41 attack, 23 speed, 36 defense, and 29 resistance. I don't normally mention super boons or super banes except for certain occasions, and this is one of them. Winter Ephraim has a plus attack super boon. This means a plus attack Ephraim will start with 45 attack with no weapons or other skills. This gives Ephraim the crown of highest possible attack stat wise, and he can definitely use it well. His other stats are all somewhat average for armor units except for his speed, which is on the lower side of the spectrum. However, Ephraim has some big stat boosting skills that we will talk about. Ephraim's special is Dragon Fang, and with his insane base attack stat, it's a great choice. Even if Ephraim's speed is on the lower side, he doesn't care because he has Bold Fighter. The guaranteed follow-up is very nice, and with the cooldown reduction, it will help him proc Dragon Fang in one round when combined with his weapon. As for his C skill, Close Guard is still somewhat new. It grants all allies within 2 spaces, plus 4 defense and res when fighting melee enemies. Definitely not a bad support skill. Ephraim appears to have just brought along his trusty Sigmund to the Winter Festival. I guess tying a new Christmas themed cloth to it makes it a completely new weapon. Festive Sigmund is a 60 might lance, and it actually has the Killer/Slang effect, which gives him a flat cooldown reduction for whatever special he uses. Its second effect is that if Ephraim is not adjacent to any ally, he gets +4 to all stats during combat. It's the same idea as the solo skills. While this Sigmund is pretty different from its other 2 variants, it actually still gives Ephraim the same playstyle. It's extremely good when Ephraim can lead the charge first, and remember, he has Bold Fighter, backed by his crazy base attack. A neutral winter Ephraim will hit you with 57 attack 2 times, and he is getting extra stats too. He will definitely want Armor March support so that he has more mobility options and ensures he is always one space away from his allies. The downside to Festive Sigmund is that it makes Ephraim a bit awkward to use in standard Armor Emblem teams. If you want those extra stats, you can't be next to allies, and so Ephraim doesn't really want to play that defensive style such as Fae. Doesn't mean he can't bait attacks, but if you want the full potential of the weapon, it works best when Ephraim is the one making attacks first. To complement the idea of being alone, Winter Ephraim also has attack and defense solo. He gets another +6 attack and defense if he is not adjacent to any allies. With Festive Sigmund, that means Ephraim can potentially get +10 attack and defense and +4 speed and res just for standing by himself. It's pretty obvious that giving Ephraim +10 attack on top of his insane base attack won't end well for his enemies. Ephraim is really not a unit you want to bait if you have to face him. Letting him attack first generally means that he moves away from his team, and that activates Festive Sigmund and attack and defense solo. Not to mention Bold Fighter, his high attack stat, and Dragon Fang will be activating too. With just his base kit, you definitely want to get the jump on Ephraim first. For builds, Winter Ephraim is pretty set from the start. As we discussed, his playstyle is geared heavily toward offense, and he can do some serious damage if you let him attack first. With Festive Sigmund and attack and defense solo, Ephraim will reach 67 attack when by himself, and that can be achieved when he moves forward to make an attack. Armor March will be very useful to accomplish this. Dragon Fang will hit for 33 damage or more, and honestly Ephraim should already be doing a ton of base damage. Unlike most armor units, Ephraim is hurt by staying with his team, and that can lead to a strange disconnect depending on who his teammates are. He has incredible destructive potential, but you will have to position correctly to get the most mileage out of him. If you don't want Ephraim charging ahead by himself, he can opt for a more enemy phase build that still builds off of his high attack. With Festive Sigmund reducing cooldown by -1, Ephraim can have Glimmer on a 1-turn cooldown. When he takes one hit, he retaliates with Glimmer boosted by his high base attack. Distant Counter lets him do this to any unit type. Now this is a build I've seen on Effie's, and it can be a bit tough to tackle depending on who is behind her. This build really wants allies that can overlap with Ephraim if he makes an attack first, so that would be a ranged armor unit. You want to either force the enemy to trade with Ephraim, who should be getting buffed heavily, or you make them take multiple attacks. There are other options for this type of build, including replacing Sigmund completely with just a Slaying Lance that can get extra stats. You could keep Bold Fighter and Festive Sigmund if you trust Ephraim to not die if he gets doubled on the enemy phase, and this current Tempest Trials also introduces a Fierce Stance Sacred Seal, which only makes that Glimmer one-shot more deadly. Last up is sort of a one-man army build. Keeping attack and defense solo and bold fighter, we are adding Aether and double smoke skills to the mix. This build wants Ephraim to be in the thick of things, so buff him up for the turn and either smite him forward or reposition him so he can go off on his own. Aether will charge with 2 bold fighter hits, and attack smoke will help Ephraim from dying before he can heal back up. Speed smoke may seem odd here, but I think it can possibly work since the -7 debuff combined with the +4 speed buff from Sigmund might prevent more doubles than you might usually think of. Now you could run distant counter here too if you want, but that means you definitely want to give Ephraim field buffs before sending him off on his own. Winter Ephraim won't play like most army units if you want to get the most out of him. It would be best if he was left alone and still got buffed so he could continue clearing enemies. Luckily that can be done with the help of our last unit. Last we have Winter Eirika, who is our very first armored healer. Now interestingly, she can use Wary Fighter, Bold Fighter, and Vengeful Fighter, at least based off what the requirement says. Make of that what you will. Eirika has 42 HP, 36 attack, 23 speed, 30 defense, and 34 resistance. She has the highest attack for all healers, and her HP, defense, and res are all really high compared to the average. 23 speed is very slow, and as such Eirika will love Wary Fighter, which no other healer can use. With this skill she can definitely take a hit or two. Eirika's base skills include Restore Plus, which is a good healing move, especially these days with all the debuffs flying around. She has Heavenly Light, which is nice because with only one movement space, Eirika won't be able to heal faraway allies. Last, her B skill is Dowsing Staff, which protects her from counterattacks and allows her to use the scary Wrathful plus Dowsing Staff combo without further inheriting. Eirika introduces the Joyous Lantern, which is a new inheritable staff. It has 12 might, and at the start of the turn, it grants +5 defense and res to the ally with the highest attack for one turn. Remember how Winter Ephraim has the really high base attack? Well, Winter Eirika will be a great support for him by being able to buff him from anywhere on the map. This is a really good staff for backline healing since Eirika doesn't need to get close to the action at all to apply buffs. Since the Joyous Lantern Plus doesn't debuff enemies, I also think the Wrathful Staff upgrade is a better use for it because there's no real reason to attack with your healer unless you are truly desperate, and without Wrathful Staff they will do very little damage. Now I believe that Joyous Lantern can buff multiple allies if they have the same attack. Chill type skills can debuff multiple enemies if they have the same targeted stats, so I don't see why this isn't the case for the opposite. On the same subject, Winter Eirika also introduces Attack Opening 3. This skill grants +6 attack to the ally with the highest attack on your team, and it basically works the same as Joyous Lantern. Eirika having both of these allows you to buff at least one ally with +5 defense and res, and +6 attack from anywhere on the map. Again, Winter Ephraim loves this because he can receive field buffs without even needing to be next to Eirika or anyone else. This allows him to get the stat boost from Festive Sigmund and attack and defense solo as well. You can apply this idea to pretty much any unit with high attack. Attack Opening and Joyous Lantern will work best if you have a specific team comp in mind, and it can have crazy potential if you somehow manage to get your whole team to have the same attack value. I'm sure someone will be doing this. For builds, I would mainly say Winter Eirika will best benefit from Wary Fighter. She could use Bold or Vengeful Fighter, but I'm not really sure if it's worth the investment. if you just want a healer who doesn't have to worry about dying from a single hit, then Wary Fighter is the clear choice. Joy's Lantern and attack opening is already a fine setup for backline healing, and you can also use things like the physic healing skill or armored boots if you want to give Eirika extra mobility and range. The Live to Serve Sacred Seal can actually be very useful when used with Wary Fighter, especially if Eirika is taking hits and needs to heal the team. Wary Fighter can also assist in applying the crazy Pain Plus and Savage Blow splash damage combo. What's scary is seeing this in an armor team where Eirika can heal and she can apply tons of splash damage. With Wary Fighter, she will take some effort to kill as well, and that allows her team to swoop in and finish the job. For a bit of a meme build, you could try Close Counter with the Absorb Staff. This sounds like a lot of fun, but I am very unsure of how it would work in practice. Ideally, Wary Fighter lets Eirika take less hits, and with Absorb, she can heal back up to keep Wary Fighter going. I don't think this build makes Eirika much of a threat, it's just another way to be annoying. If you don't kill her, she heals back up, or she keeps healing her allies. Winter Eirika might be extremely annoying if she is paired with other Wary Fighter armor units who don't die. It's tough to kill her, and it's tough to kill her whole team. Not finishing them off allows Eirika to heal them, which is very bad for you. I think it can work, but again, this is pretty new territory, so I'm not going to claim it's an amazing strategy just yet. In summary, Winter Fae is the newest green armored dragon, and while she has incredible bulk thanks to her stats and skills, I don't think she will outright replace old male Grima. Winter Ephraim is a lance armor who is a bit odd for an armor unit. He benefits the most from standing away from the team, and if he can make the first move, he will deal ridiculous amounts of damage. As for Winter Eirika, she is our first armored healer, and she introduces 2 ways to buff allies with the highest attack on your team from anywhere on the map. She can use armor only skills as well, so that should make for some interesting builds for her. In my opinion, I don't think any of these units will break the game any more than it already is. Everyone is already preparing green armor counters thanks to Surtur, and while Ephraim is scary, we've seen many high attack armors who abuse Bold Fighter. Eirika is definitely interesting, and for Armor Emblem teams, she might be a must-have depending on what people do with her. If anything, she is a very valuable asset if you like tanky armor teams that huddle together and move around Deathball style. Now, I do want to remind everyone that the next Tempest Trials has already started. It features Winter Cecilia as the free reward unit, and of course 3 new Sacred Seals. I'll have a separate video for the Tempest Trials coming out soon, so be on the lookout for that. Thanks for watching, I'll see you guys in the next video.